you. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Okay. It's good.
Yeah.
Joining us right now at his convenience from The Athletic. We didn't even have time to do the thing. Yep. No hat. So he's already up. He's showered. He's got the hoodie on. Got the glasses on. It's Sam Amick. Sam, are the glasses mainly a morning thing? Because I haven't seen you in person in a while, and generally you were not a glasses person like when I'd see you in the afternoons and evenings. So are you like morning glasses dad guy and then you switch later, or are you kind of full-time glasses now?
It's the vision up close is awful, and y'all are close enough on the laptop that I can't see y'all very well, but thanks for putting my business in the streets, Dave, as I feel older.
You're on YouTube. Yeah. I can see you, dude.
I know, but making such a thing. It's a recent revelation, and I keep telling people that I convince myself it's not a product of age. I got a kid who's had glasses since he was 5, so that should make me feel better. But yeah, the eyes don't work like they used to, and hence the glasses.
Well, you wear them well, Sam. Let's
yeah,
put
you
it that
do.
way. Yeah.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it.
As we're talking to Sam Amick from The Athletic. Sam, you recently just wrote about the 65-game rule, which is getting a lot of attention, certainly for what Tyrese Halliburton has come out and said. We know Joel Embiid's one of the front runners for the MVP, and that's at risk. What are you hearing? What's kind of the pushback from the balance of the rest versus the rule, and where the league may go with this?
Yeah, I mean, it's become a huge topic very, very quickly. Like you said, Jay, with Embiid front and center. My opinion is I feel like is kind of evolving quickly. When they came up with it, I was very excited because I like seeing the best players play, and it seemed like between the rule and the incentives and all this stuff that guys like Kawhi Leonard were back on the floor again. So it had a lot of positives, a lot of pros, but man, all of a sudden I'm personally seeing the downside, which is, Joel Embiid is becoming the poster boy for this guy who is, on track to be an all-time great Hall of Famer. But because of the rule, I think what concerns me the most is that he's only played 65 plus games twice in the 7 seasons that he's been able to play. So it's like when it comes to the history books, I know it's, I'm just using him as one guy, but are we comfortable having him essentially kind of disappear from the annals of NBA history after 2023, essentially, so it's not great. And I'm curious to see where it goes.
I want you guys to both follow me here. I'm just going to put you on the spot, but I know you both very well, and I know that you can answer these questions on the fly. And no, I'm not setting traps for you. Sam, I'll start with you. Sam, what would you say is a good benchmark in baseball for a player hitting home runs per year? Like to say they're really a power hitter.
I mean, I'm old school, so 30. I don't know.
30 or 40. Okay, great. How about RBI? You've had a really good year if you've had this many. 100. Yeah. Jason, in football, what? How about for a quarterback, yards? To know that they've had a great year. How many would you say?
A good year, 4,000.
4,000. How about a running back or wide receiver touchdown score?
Double digits, 10 or more.
Double digits. Sam, you're a Giants fan like I am. You remember the great Barry Bonds years, right? When he broke the record and all that. The year he broke the record, how many home runs per game did he have?
Yeah, I know you're going down the per game road.
Exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
Why is it in basketball? Because maybe that's the fix to this whole thing. Because I'm with you that it's a tough argument, but the best availability is availability. And if a guy can't play 65 games, I don't understand, unless it's like this crazy, overwhelming sequence of things, how he could be in consideration for really any award, but maybe we're thinking about it wrong. Why is it in the NBA we're going, he averages 30 points per game? Why aren't we going with total points? Why aren't we going with total assists, total steals? Wouldn't that make it easier for the voters? Take away the minimum game thing. Just look at total points for the year and all those stats and make your decision that way.
I'll push back like this.
Push.
I hear you. I'm pushing, man. I want the choice as a voter. I think this is what I slept on, and I now feel. I want the choice as a voter. It's fine. If I see that he played 62 games, guess what? I'm not going to vote for him. But I want the choice. And I think what happens is, for one, it's a little bit it feels as a voter like, hey guys, we are intelligent enough to figure out, who should be the guy and who shouldn't. And availability does matter a great deal. But the idea that it's off the table, literally, guys, unofficially, it was January 31st when Embiid, goes down again. And he's almost disqualified in early February.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm pretty good typically at seeing things from the other side. So if I am Adam Silver and I want to make money in the way that they do, and I want to add to the bottom line, we have dog appearance every week. Yeah,
that's good.
You now run the risk of removing. Hold, please.
You know what? Dog does not like Sam's argument whatsoever. That's the problem. Dog's like, Sam, you're full of garbage. You have the choice. You can look at everything, dude. You can look at total. Dog did not agree. Go ahead. Yeah, Dog's weighing in.
We can figure it out on our own, and you now took Embiid out of the conversation, so to speak, very early in the season. I think selfishly from the NBA standpoint, one of the concerns is that, tracking MVP, tracking who's going to get it, who's the best, is something we do until the end of the regular season. So now you just took the guy who was the front runner off of the list. I think that should matter for the NBA because Jokic overnight became the Vegas leader when it comes to MVP. So I'm not arguing that a guy who plays 60 games should get MVP. I just think one of the unintended consequences is that it changes the conversation halfway through the year.
Yeah, I feel like there's nuance too, right? I mean, if he played 64 and misses by 1, that feels like a true crime. But if he ends up natural causes, everything, and he played 53, it's all right, well, that's different.
It sounded like he passed away, Jay.
I know, I'm sorry. But you know what I mean? But to your point though, Sam, let's say Embiid officially.
Super quick context.
Yeah.
Sorry for abruptly doing that. 66 games last year, he wins MVP. Lowest game total for an MVP since 1980. I voted for Giannis partly because of Embiid's lack of availability.
Yeah, you had the choice, though.
You had the choice, and that's it. It just feels hollow that now it's damn, that was a fun Embiid season that ended in January.
Yeah, well, and look, this organization and him specifically, they want to win a title, and I don't know if they will, but let's say he officially gets below the threshold where if he played the rest, he's going to play 64, so because the number 65, wouldn't that then lend to him actually maybe resting more?
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing is 100%. You're probably not going to see much Embiid down the stretch. I couldn't agree more. I said that the other day. Now, granted, they need to win games, and with Maxey being out right now, they're struggling. So if they felt like they could be where they want to be in the standings with him resting, you're going to see load management, without any shame whatsoever. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So I just, everything that you both have said, you, Sam, talking about, and I agree with you. Now, if you take Embiid off the chessboard, that's a lot of content. That's a lot of clicks. That's a lot of fun that we all have as fans and media going over these arguments. You don't want to take away these conversations, but I just want to go back again. If we were to have a fundamental change on how we look at these things and we take away the 65 game threshold, why would anything change? Now, all of a sudden, okay, well, you can play in 40 games. If you're leading the league in points, for example, and rebounds and assists or whatever, we're just going to look at. In other words, if you go away from averages, which I think might be a little bit wrong and outdated, and you adopt the total points, much like you do in baseball or football, now all of a sudden the lack of games is baked into the formula and trying to figure out these awards. So why don't we just do that and take away from everything else?
I mean, you're just talking about the way voters ultimately vote, and that's fine. You know what I mean? That should be the conversation regarding how voters vote. That's different from disqualifying guys.
I agree. You shouldn't disqualify them. I'm saying take away the disqualification, but you can bake in that 65 game or 60 or 40 by teaching and encouraging voters to get rid of. In other words, you award the scoring title to whoever has the most points.
Yeah, but it would never be someone playing 40 games.
It wouldn't, of course. I mean, it could, I guess, but
no,
no,
and I think, if we consistently saw the list of scorers in total points versus per game, and we saw Embiid, like 20th on the list, that's going to change the way you look at it. I couldn't agree more. The other thing, and I'm curious, I know we probably want to get to other stuff here, guys, but how you guys see this is I am a bit of a sucker for like fairness historically, meaning for one, Draymond Green mentioned the other day, and I thought it was a very fair point, that he lost out one year to Kawhi Leonard for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
When Kawhi played 58 games. His point was, well, like now you have a before and after kind of history kind of demarcation line for the NBA, because Draymond Green would have been Defensive Player of the Year that year if this rule currently existed. That's not quote unquote fair. Again, I'm using Embiid as a poster boy, but Draymond is also the guy who I think kind of rightly said in the preseason, like, y'all are going to love the 65 game rule. And I forget how he worded it, but he basically said, until you have a bunch of all NBA teams with trash players. And, that's the extreme version of it, but all NBA is going to be really interesting. When you got some guys who don't really, feel like they belong there. I'm curious to see what happens, and I'll cap it with this. I looked into it yesterday. I don't think the rule's going to change, but just for the sake of knowledge for us, I guess, they can make revisions to the CBA. It's something that happens from time to time. As of yesterday, that was not being discussed, but you got Joe Dumars, now the executive VP of basketball ops for the NBA, granting interviews. He talked to Vinny Goodwill from Yahoo Sports today about the unintended consequences of the rule. So the conversation is shifting, and I'm curious to see if it leads to anything.
Just to cap your cap, I just want to finish the point with this.
No more
guys.
caps.
Your points per game leaders in the NBA: Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Kevin Durant. Those are your top 5. If you switch it to total, your scoring champion right now is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, followed by Giannis, Luka, Jokic, and Jalen Brunson. Just to give you an idea, Joel Embiid, as of right now, is 271 points behind Gilgeous-Alexander. I'll just say it again. Somebody find an argument that makes sense to me as to why Joel Embiid should win the scoring title if the season ended today over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That would be, to me, as asinine as saying that, Brock Purdy wins the yardage title because he averaged this amount of yards, but he played in 12 games versus Patrick Mahomes, who played in all 17, who passed for more total yards. That's what we're doing in the NBA. So again, I know I'm obsessed with this, Sam, but it's
fair.
We need to just rethink the way we do this, because this is the better way to do it.
It is. I've had this conversation, not to this extent. It is. You're right on point. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking as a baseball guy, like my rudimentary math, like with Bonds' 72 homers,
right.
Like it's 0.4 per game. That was his history making mark.
Right. What are we doing? What in what world is that how you, he's getting 0.63 RBI per game. He's leading. Get out of here.
Yeah. Another thing we'll be debating, I'm sure, after tonight, Sam, is the All-Star reserves, that there's going to be people left off, there's snubs. I think that also gets into another way that it's, how is this truly quantified? Can it be someone that's individually having a great year, but the team is in the bottom 5? So I don't know. As you look at it tonight, let's stay with the West, because I know Kings fans would be interested whether or not Fox and Sabonis, one, neither, both are going to make it. How do you think the reserves will shake out in the controversial All-Star reserve list?
I have admittedly not completely broken down things. I'm going to cheat while we talk, Jay, and pull up a piece that we had on our site about reserves if we feel like debating individual guys. For Kings purposes, obviously in the West, I'm wondering how that looks. If I had to handicap it, and I think you already said this, but head coaches pick the reserves. So you always have it's an interesting, different filter, right? Like you got to think like a coach, where like Rudy Gobert comes to mind. I'd be surprised if Rudy doesn't make the team. Coaches, players might be anti-Rudy a lot of times. Coaches are not, that type of thing. With that in mind, I think Sabonis will get in. Again, this is not reporting. This is just my own speculation. I would wonder about Fox for sure. He had a really poorly timed, not even a bad month. Just he went from like lights out for the first month to more mediocre the second month. I think given the guard landscape in the West and the idea that, in that story that I was going to reference, our John Hollinger gave his picks at the Athletic, and, he doesn't have Steph Curry as a reserve, which kind of tells you how competitive things are when it comes to guards in the West. I think Fox could pay a price there, although I do think he actually had Fox in. It'll be really, really interesting to see what happens tonight.
Hollinger's argument, I read the Hollinger article we were talking about earlier today. He actually had Fox in and had Curry off. And as much as I often disagree with John, I actually appreciate his argument here that Fox has better numbers for the most part than Curry. They're almost exactly the same after last night in points per game, but he's also on a much better team. But Sam, as Jason and I were talking about, no, they're not leaving Curry off the reserves, right? Like
that's where I think, the coach's point that I made. I don't know. It's hard, man. Like, I don't think so.
Right.
And I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but Jamal Murray's never been an all-star.
Yeah.
And Hollinger had him in as a wild card. And again, I think coaches are typically going to honor success, team success. And I think that's where the Steph one is so challenging because, he is an absolute legend in the game. And I think coaches are going to feel compelled to vote him in. But then his team is obviously way down in the standings. And a guy like Jamal Murray is a defending champion and deserves some of that recognition in his own right. So, we'll see what happens.
Sam Amick from The Athletic. Sammy had a nice piece on Domantas Sabonis, who we just talked about, may be named an all-star again tonight. Always curious when you get to write just the stuff you learn, stuff you don't even report on too. What was that conversation like with Sabonis?
Yeah, it was good. It's unintentionally, we've had this funny rhythm of I guess 3 years in a row now, doing a more extensive interview this time of year, or at least at some point during the season. And I just, for one, he's a very enjoyable guy, even beyond basketball. He's fascinating when you talk about the history with his father and his family. And so what I loved about our talk was that kind of hybrid discussion about basketball, but also the lifestyle around basketball. He obviously got really deep into his training in the summertime with Doug Christie. When I had chatted with his agent, Greg Lawrence, about the story, he had shared some of this background and the idea that despite the fact that Sabonis was coming off the best year of his career, I voted him 5th in MVP last year. He finished 7th. There's fantastic stuff for him individually, that he went into this summer and attacked it in not only a different way, but a more meaningful way, I think, than maybe ever before. And so that spirit of never settling, always trying to get better was something I was curious to learn more about. But the guy is incredibly serious about his craft. I admire what appears to be a really kind of unique ability to also balance that with his family life, which I think the three of us can relate to. No matter how much money you make, you still have humans that you're sharing your life with and trying to make it work. And he, at the end, I think it's in the article, he talked about how his dad never brought work home, and that it's something that he has done with his family. And it seems like he's really strict about that. If his wife wants to ask him about a game, that's fine. But I'm not coming home, asking, wondering about Mike Brown's rotations. Enjoyed quite a bit getting to connect with him.
There was I think it was a mention in there about his off-season diet and what he found. He took a test, and there were some foods that he just didn't work for him, like pasta, Italian food, which he loves and all that. Now he's basically the same weight, but absolutely no body fat whatsoever. Sam, in talking to him, did you just get the sense that he's just a focused, motivated dude at peace? Because that's what your article kind of gave off, I thought.
Yeah, he seemed that way. It's funny though, too. Admittedly, I have not. It's funny. Sometimes you get feedback on stories, sometimes you don't. I have not connected with him or anybody with his group since the piece, and I know him well enough to know that when I choose to start an interview and a column with Domantas Sabonis is slightly paranoid, which I did, and proceeded to explain. I there was a small part of me that was like, all right, I hope he reads the whole thing and understands the point that was getting made. The paranoia is, like you said, he's a guy who's at peace, but he's not settled when it comes to the NBA. He has a bit of a paranoia about, what if it all fell apart? It's not quite imposter syndrome by any means, but it is a desire to make as much impact in the NBA as possible and appreciate the chance he has. And I think it's born out of, and this is, you get a little bit deeper here, but like his dad was an all-time great and a guy who for so long, the NBA crowd wanted to see Arvydas Sabonis play in the NBA. And he was a mythical figure overseas. Now, the Soviet Union wouldn't let him come. You had government restrictions and kind of wartime, Cold War type stuff. That was something his dad was up against. Then he had injuries that kept his dad from coming to the NBA. So I think Domantas, with all that context, like looks at the NBA as a real privilege and something that his dad didn't get to experience as much as he wanted to. And I think that's kind of the root of it.
Sam, we are now 1 week away from the trade deadline, and seemingly, I mean, you're more tapped in than we are, but it seems very, very quiet, at least rumors and some of that stuff. Is that the same sense you're getting right now?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think there's plenty of conversations, but there's just not we've talked the last couple of weeks, like the names have shifted a bit. I think I shared a few last week, but haven't heard anything developing from there. I was at the Warriors game the other night and chatting with people about good old DeJounte Murray still being like the number one guy on the list and whether it would be Lakers or maybe Brooklyn. There's not a ton of movement. There's plenty of people kind of denying certain ideas. I saw, Jimmy Butler chatter that his agent jumped on Twitter to kind of smack down. So yeah, relatively quiet. I think like always, last couple of days will heat up, but we're still kind of in waiting mode.
Who are the Kings going to trade for specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to. Can we just keep it between us?
Yes. Yes.
Giannis has put a request in, and
he
prefers the Kings.
He loves the weather out here. Do we have to take Thanasis though?
Yes. I wish there was another Giannis. I was gonna have the punchline be it was a different Giannis.
Oh, you're talking about Giannis Smith, Giannis Johnson. In a broader view, and kind of building off what Jason asked, we talked about this the other day, Sam. Last year is like, oh, they got to make a move. They got to make a move. They got to make a move. And, it was Kessler Edwards. No offense to him, but that's a very peripheral move. And who knows, maybe tomorrow breaks and Kings have traded God knows who for God knows what. But you kind of get the chance that in Monty's brain and in that front office, there's the whole, like, they have on a whiteboard somewhere, like sometimes the best moves you make are the moves you don't make or something like that.
No, I think their whiteboard probably has 30 names on it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think that kind of sentiment is sometimes there. I mean, they continue to be talked about as a team that has got to do something. Now, I do think quietly they dropped the game to Miami. I watched that game. Fox had a tough night. That to me was kind of the X factor in that game. But by and large, they've been playing better recently, and you see some of the offensive rhythm. I haven't crunched the numbers, but it feels like the offense has found some of its identity again. And I do think that I keep having to remind myself that while their story took such an uptick at the end of last season with how well they played late in the regular season and the Warriors series, like by this point last year, this is kind of when they started finding their stride and became a good team. They were somewhat hit and miss before this point on the calendar. And if you guys disagree with that, let me know. But I feel like, they might be finding something here even without a move.
That is Sam Amick of The Athletic. Tune in to Sam here, and of course, any old podcasty stuff he does when he cheats on us. Also read his work, watch him on, read him on Twitter. And as we get closer to the trade deadline, we always have kind of an unspoken rule with Sam. If we get something crazy, obviously he comes on every Thursday, but if something crazy goes down and he's available, we'll have him on as soon as he possibly can to break that down for us. So we appreciate you, buddy. And I'm a huge fan of me giving you column ideas. And you never use them, but let's
times I think I have.
You have actually, not counting the cushy poker player thing. That doesn't count. Let's just do a deep dive on. In fact, let's do a back and forth, Sam. Let's do a Q&A on total points being the points per game award instead of averages. I'm gonna carry the flag on that thing, man. I think
I might not write a column about it. I might. This is a shameless plug. I'm going to steal it from since you just generalize my podcast life with your disparaging, man, can I get a plug on here? The Tampering Podcast, part of the Athletic NBA Show Network. I'm literally recording right after this. So I will be giving you a shout out on the Tampering Pod and talking about your revolutionary idea here.
It's revolutionary.
Think, you might be onto something.
I think the Carmichael Dave Points Award leader is what you would actually name it. They put it on the trophy and the whole thing. Okay. So ask Adam, where he's not going anywhere.
That's right.
For a long time.
Yeah.
You're the best, Sam. Thank you. You can go play with your dog now.
Thanks, guys. Be good.
Right.
Have a good day.
That's Sam Amick. We're way late for a break. When we come back, 4 down, Terrence.